set up in Pro Tools where the 916 feeds are recorded here, but they also go directly into the Sony renderer. And then I place the standard speaker settings, but because I'm doing a 916, and that's the cool thing, you can do that with the software. So then it doesn't become a speaker, but it becomes a placement of a sound. If you want to move something around, you don't necessarily have to move the object. To do immersive, what I've brought is standard mixes. So the way I approach immersive mixing is I go out in the studio, or I sometimes do it with VME on headphones if I don't have the space available, and I mix and I think about how it could sound in immersive, and then not in how it could sound in a format. And when you have speakers, it's great. You can do that. You can mix in 916 here or in 13.1 in Sony without thinking about the format and what it does. Both formats talk about objects. You have static objects and dynamic objects. In Atmos you have a bed, because that's comes from the film era where they started working like that. And then you have objects. In Sony you work with objects, but you can place these objects in speaker positions. Then they don't move, they become static objects. So I ended up landing in a place where I mix in an immersive format. Let's say generally I do it in 916 because I can bring it down to smaller formats. I mean, I have those set up in Pro Tools where the 916 feeds are recorded here, but they also go directly into the Sony renderer. And that's on input. So the output of the Sony renderer goes to the speakers. That all runs basically live. So I hear what it does in the Sony software and in the format on the speakers. And then I place the standard speaker settings, but because I'm doing a 916, I want to go to the 916 positions. So I put the objects in the 916 position. That is not where the Sony speakers are. So I use a wide speaker, so it's virtually over there. I use a side speaker, it's virtually over there. I use speakers over top, those are virtually between those two speakers. And that's the cool thing, you can do that with the software. So then it doesn't become a speaker, but it becomes a placement of a sound that could have a speaker there. And those are all static. Now, why do I do that? When you have static objects, each object and this is the boring technical part, has its full frequency response. If you take an object and you take it off axis and put it somewhere else, or automate it and make it move, which could be very cool, then it has a limited frequency response. The artificial intelligence in there looks at the object and says, oh, it only has a triangle in there, so it doesn't need, but it doesn't know that you put a reverb in there, because it analyzes what is the loudest. It looks for what is the loudest in the object. So the disadvantage of doing it with a lot of objects is that you can have a lot of play and movement and positioning, but it limits you in the frequency response. And also if you then start moving stuff around on the axis, also beyond 120 degrees, so it has to go to the back or up, it also changes color. It has to, because that's how they make you aware of the positioning. And that also has to do with binaural, otherwise it wouldn't appear here. It's difficult anyway, but it would not. But if you want to move something around, you don't necessarily have to move the object. You can make a bus in Pro Tools, 4 bus, 5-1, or whatever bus, if you want to, and create a field in here, put those objects in the static positions that you'd like them to be. Doesn't have to be the speaker position. And pan inside Pro Tools or Nuendo or whatever software you use, and move objects in the field. By doing that, the object doesn't change color when it moves around in 360 degrees. Might be a bit more work, because to set up an extra bus and do it, but the result in the tonality of what you are moving around or placing in the field doesn't change.